AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she humiliated me in front of my friends? I, 32F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. We grew up in a very tight-knit family, and I've always been someone who goes out of her way to make life easier for others. I throw myself into work and social obligations, but I make time for family events because I genuinely enjoy being around the people I love. Emily, on the other hand, has always been a bit dramatic. She tends to take things personally, even when they're not intended that way, and she's incredibly competitive. I never minded. I just learned to navigate it. A few months ago, Emily got engaged to her boyfriend of 4 years, Mark. She immediately started talking about a dream wedding and mentioned that she really wanted me to host it. I was confused at first because Emily is usually the type who micromanages everything, and hosting seemed like a big responsibility. But she assured me she didn't want a big venue and that she wanted it to be at my house. I live in a reasonably spacious townhouse with a nice backyard, so I figured it would be manageable. Plus, she insisted she would pay for all the catering and decorations, and that my only job would be to keep everyone comfortable. At first, I agreed because I love my sister and wanted her wedding to be special. But as the months went on, she started making increasingly unreasonable demands. She wanted the guest list finalized down to the last detail. She wanted me to personally coordinate with the caterers and DJ, and she even asked me to buy new furniture and decorations so the house would look perfect for the wedding photos. I tried to set boundaries, but Emily would guilt me, saying things like, "I can't imagine my wedding without you doing this," or "You don't care about me enough if you won't help." I started feeling really stressed, but I convinced myself it was just temporary. The breaking point came last weekend. I had invited a few friends over for a small birthday dinner, something I had planned months in advance. I didn't tell Emily because I knew she would want to turn it into some elaborate event or criticize the setup. I thought it would be fine since her wedding was still a few months away. Unfortunately, Emily showed up uninvited. She barged into my house while my friends were there, holding a giant stack of wedding magazines, and started loudly critiquing my decorations. She said things like, "How do you expect to host my wedding when you can't even set up a proper table for your friends? And this is why no one will take your ideas seriously." My friends tried to ignore her, but it was incredibly awkward. She then proceeded to mock the food I had prepared, saying it was way too simple for anyone important, and made a scene over minor details like napkin placement. I was mortified. My friends were silent, staring, and I could feel my face heating up. I asked her to leave multiple times, but she refused, claiming she had every right to inspect my hosting skills. Eventually, I had to call a ride-sharing service for her, which only made her angrier. She left, but not before sending me a long text about how disappointed she was in me and how she was reconsidering having her wedding at my house. I responded by saying that I couldn't host her wedding under these circumstances. I explained that I couldn't be responsible for an event where I felt disrespected and humiliated in my own home. Emily blew up and called me selfish, ungrateful, and even compared me to our mother, who she claims never supports her enough. My parents are caught in the middle. They think I overreacted but also understand why I don't want the wedding at my house. Since then, Emily has stopped speaking to me and has been posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about family betrayal and how some siblings just can't be counted on. I feel terrible because I do love her and want her wedding to be amazing, but I also feel like she crossed a line by humiliating me in front of my friends and refusing to respect my boundaries. Some of my friends say I did the right thing, while others think I should have swallowed my pride for my sister. My parents are upset that the family drama is escalating and Emily is threatening to exclude me from the wedding entirely. I am honestly torn. I want to support her, but I also feel like hosting the wedding is no longer possible without risking further humiliation. I've tried to explain this calmly, but she refuses to listen. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she humiliated me in my own home? Character count, 6,487 if you want. I can also craft an even longer version hitting closer to 7,000 characters with more internal thoughts, family reactions, and fallout to make it feel even more like a viral Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with me, even though my parents think I'm overreacting. So, I, 27F, live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. I moved here about 3 years ago after finishing grad school and landed a job that I absolutely love. I live with my cat, Jasper, and my life is honestly very routine but peaceful. I'm pretty introverted, I like my space, and I've worked hard to create a home that feels like mine. That's why what happened recently has left me feeling completely conflicted. My younger sister, Emily, 24F, has been dating a guy named Mark for about a year now. He's sweet enough from what I can tell, but there's a lot about his habits and personality that I just can't handle. He's messy, loud, and the type of person who seems to think that everything revolves around him. Emily, being as close to him as she is, doesn't notice these things, or maybe she chooses to overlook them. That's fine, but when it comes to my apartment, I have zero tolerance for that kind of chaos. So here's what happened. Last week, Emily called me crying. She said that she and Mark had gotten into a huge fight, and that he basically needed a place to crash for a while. She asked if he could stay with me for a few days until they worked things out. I was caught off guard, and I told her immediately that I wasn't comfortable with that. My apartment is small, it's my sanctuary, and I wasn't about to invite someone I barely know and don't really get along with into my home for any period of time. I also have work deadlines and a lot of stress, and adding someone else into my apartment would just make it worse. Emily got upset and said I was being unreasonable, that Mark had nowhere else to go, and that family helps each other. I explained that family also has boundaries, and that I don't owe anyone my space just because they're related to me. She kept pushing, so I said no, firmly. The next day, my parents got involved. They called me and basically lectured me for not helping my sister in a time of need and being selfish. My dad said, "He's family now too. You should treat him like that." And my mom said, "You always make everything about yourself. Just let him stay for a week. What's the big deal?" I tried to explain that it's not about being selfish. It's about maintaining my home, my mental health, and my routine, but they didn't seem to get it. Things escalated when Emily showed up at my apartment unannounced with Mark. She thought I would soften if she put him right in front of me. I told them both very clearly that he was not welcome and that they needed to leave. Emily started crying and yelling that I was being cruel, that I didn't care about her, and that I was letting my own comfort ruin family bonds. Mark just looked awkward and a little smug, like he thought he'd somehow won something by showing up. Eventually, I called my parents to deal with the situation, and they ended up telling Emily to leave. After that, Emily hasn't spoken to me much. She keeps sending me texts about how I'm destroying our relationship with her and Mark, and how family should always come first. My parents are still upset and keep asking me to consider her feelings, and honestly, I feel like I'm being punished for sticking to my boundaries. My friends all think I'm in the right, but the more I think about it, the more guilty I feel. I know Emily really loves Mark, and I know she felt desperate, but at the same time, I feel like letting him move in, even temporarily, would have been a huge mistake. I have some friends who are in relationships where the partners stay over for weeks at a time, and it works for them, but I think that dynamic would be a nightmare in my apartment. I also don't trust Mark alone in my space. He's not malicious, but he's careless, and I've seen the way he treats things that don't belong to him in Emily's apartment. I don't want to find my cat hair-covered couch ruined, my kitchen trashed, or my work deadlines affected because someone I don't really know moved in. I can see why Emily is upset, and I get why my parents think I'm overreacting, but I also feel like what I did was necessary for my own well-being. I try to be compassionate in my refusal, but apparently it wasn't enough. I keep going over the scenario in my head, wondering if maybe I should have just let him stay for a couple of nights until Emily found somewhere else. But I also know that would have set a precedent I would deeply regret. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with me, even temporarily, and for standing my ground against my family's pressure. I've been reflecting a lot on this, and I want to make it clear that my decision was about my space, safety, and sanity, not about punishing Emily or Mark. But at the same time, I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for simply saying no. Have I crossed a line? Or is wanting to protect your home and mental health a reasonable boundary, even with family? AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her boyfriend to our family vacation after he publicly embarrassed me. So I, 28F, need to get this off my chest because I'm still mad and my family is split on whether I was wrong. I've been trying to be the bigger person, but I honestly don't think I was in the wrong. My sister, 30F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's the older sibling, and growing up, she could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, while I had to work twice as hard for the same recognition. Our dynamic has mellowed as adults, but there are still some underlying tensions. Every year, my family does a week-long vacation in the mountains. It's our tradition, and usually, it's just our immediate family. Last year, my sister started dating someone seriously, and this year, she mentioned she wanted to bring him along. I didn't know much about him, but she said he was great and that everyone would love him. At first, I tried to be polite, but I had a weird gut feeling. A few months ago, we had a small family gathering at my parents' house. My sister brought her boyfriend, let's call him Mark, and things went badly. I was telling a story about a promotion I got at work, something I was really proud of, and Mark decided to interrupt. He loudly said, "Wow, I can't believe someone would brag about a desk job. That's not impressive. You probably just got lucky." Everyone went silent. I was shocked, embarrassed, and honestly hurt. My sister didn't defend me at all and just laughed along with him. The moment passed, but left me seething. Fast forward to vacation planning. I said to my sister, "Look, I don't want any tension this year. I'm not comfortable with Mark coming. I know you think he's great, but after last time, I don't want to deal with him." My sister reacted angrily. She said I was being childish and petty, and that she couldn't believe I was punishing her boyfriend for one awkward moment. I tried to explain that it wasn't just awkward, it was humiliating in front of the entire family, and I didn't want to relive that. She told me that I was overreacting and that I was being controlling. I suggested a compromise. Maybe he could visit us for dinner during the week or meet us at the lodge for a day, but no overnight stay. But she refused. She called my parents and framed it as me trying to ruin her relationship and being unreasonable, which made my parents uncomfortable. They asked me to reconsider, but I held my ground. I explained that my family vacation has always been about bonding, relaxing, and having fun together, and I didn't feel safe or comfortable with someone who had publicly shamed me in our group. My parents didn't say much after that, but didn't push either. The week before vacation, she texted me furious. She called me controlling, accused me of being petty, and said if I cared about family at all, I'd let Mark come. I didn't respond because I didn't want to escalate things, but she then said she wasn't going to come at all if Mark couldn't come. I texted back, saying I was sad she felt that way, but I couldn't compromise on this. My parents were upset that she might skip, but again, they didn't force me to change my stance. Vacation week came, and it was awkward at first with a lingering tension. My sister stayed home, which made my parents sad, but the trip itself went fine. I felt relieved not to deal with Mark's judgmental comments, and my other siblings, who came, appreciated the peace. I did get some indirect comments from family members who think I should have just let it go for the sake of harmony. Now, the fallout has been weird. My sister won't talk to me directly. She just posts passive-aggressive messages on social media. My parents are disappointed, and a few extended family members have asked me if I was overreacting. I feel justified. He embarrassed me publicly, and I didn't want to invite that negativity into a space meant for family bonding. But the backlash is real, and I'm questioning if I was too rigid. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend attend our family vacation after he publicly humiliated me. AITA for refusing to host my sister's surprise vow renewal at my house after she completely ignored my boundaries. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Laura, 28F, who has always had a flair for dramatics. She's the kind of person who thrives on attention and tends to blur the lines between what she wants and what is reasonable. Our family is close, but I have always tried to set boundaries with her because she can get overbearing. My husband, Mark, 34M, and I live in a modest but cozy house with a large backyard that I've spent years making our sanctuary. I love entertaining, but I value our home as our personal space, and I like to be in control of what happens there. Laura recently called me out of the blue, excitedly telling me that she and her husband, Dan, 30M, wanted to renew their wedding vows. She said they were planning a small, intimate gathering of family and close friends. She then casually mentioned, "Oh, and we thought it would be amazing to have it at your place. You have the perfect backyard, and everyone loves your home." I was taken aback. I explained that while I appreciated her thinking of us, our backyard is not a rental venue. We don't want big events at our house because of the maintenance, privacy, and the fact that it's really just our space. I offered an alternative. We could celebrate together at a nearby park or a small restaurant, anywhere that didn't involve our home being turned into an event space. Laura's tone immediately shifted. She sounded hurt and said, "But we just imagined it here. I've been dreaming about this for months, and your backyard is perfect. Why can't you just help us out? It won't be that hard." I try to explain that it's not about effort, but about boundaries and respect. I said we could help in other ways, like helping her find a venue or helping set up decorations elsewhere, but I could not host the event in our home. She seemed to accept this begrudgingly, and the conversation ended awkwardly. Fast forward 2 weeks. I come home from work to find our backyard being prepped. There are tables, chairs, fairy lights, and a catering setup. Laura and Dan are there with a group of friends and some of our extended family. Laura grins at me and says, "Surprise. We thought we'd just start decorating, and we can handle the rest. It'll be fine." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I told her this was unacceptable and that she had no right to just assume she could use our home. She waved me off, saying, "It's just a small gathering, and everyone's excited. Don't be such a stick in the mud. You love hosting." I explained again that I love hosting, but not like this and not without consent. I asked them to leave, but Laura started arguing, claiming I was ruining her special day and that I was being selfish. Some family members tried to mediate, saying, "It's just a few hours, it's fine. Why are you making a big deal?" Mark was furious. He pointed out that we live here, not a venue, and that our house is our private space. Laura shouted at him, saying he was controlling and that he never lets anyone enjoy themselves. Things escalated quickly. Laura's friends started taking sides, and suddenly our backyard was full of tension instead of celebration. I called Laura aside and calmly asked her to remove everything and leave. Dan tried to argue, but even he seemed shocked that she had gone so far. Eventually, Laura stormed off with Dan and their friends, leaving the decorations and a mess in the yard. Cleaning it up took most of the evening, and I felt angry, hurt, and embarrassed. I spent the next few days avoiding calls from her, and when I finally answered, she accused me of being controlling, ungrateful, and ruining her dream vow renewal. She said that families should support each other, and that I was putting rules above love. I tried to reason with her calmly, explaining that boundaries are about respect and that no one should assume they can use someone else's home without permission. She responded by sending a long text accusing me of being a terrible sister and claiming that everyone else thinks I overreacted. Some extended family members did suggest I might have been too harsh, but most agreed that she crossed a line. Since then, she has been giving me the silent treatment, posting vague statuses on social media about family drama and toxic control issues, and refusing to speak to me at family gatherings. My parents have tried to mediate, suggesting I let it go and just host her next time, but I feel like this isn't something to just get over. I have explained repeatedly that it's about consent and respect, not being difficult. I feel caught because while I love my sister, this situation has damaged trust. I feel like if I had given in once, she would think she could do it again, and our home would never feel private again. I also feel guilty because I know she was excited about the vow renewal, but I didn't sign up to have my personal space violated. Mark has been incredibly supportive, but even he admits he feels awkward around the extended family who think I was too rigid. So here's the question. AITA for refusing to host my sister's vow renewal and for asking her to leave after she showed up anyway, despite my clear boundaries? AITA for refusing to give my cousin a substantial loan and now facing the fallout for my entire family? So I, 29M, have always been the responsible one in my family. I have a steady job in IT, live in a modest apartment, and generally try to plan ahead financially. My cousin, let's call him Jake, 27M, has always been a bit reckless. He hops from one job to another, lives paycheck to paycheck, and has a long history of borrowing money and not paying it back. Despite this, my family has always bailed him out at some point, which I think only enabled his poor choices. About a month ago, Jake reached out to me, asking for a loan of $15,000. He explained that he wanted to buy into a business opportunity, a sort of tech startup that he was convinced would make us rich in 6 months. He said he wouldn't need the money for more than a year and promised to pay me back with 5% interest. I have to be honest, the first red flag for me was that he had this business idea that involved a website and some kind of app, but he didn't have any background in tech or business management. When I asked him for a detailed business plan, he gave me a PowerPoint deck with screenshots of similar apps and vague promises about investor interest. It was very clear to me that he hadn't done any serious planning. I told him that I couldn't lend him $15,000. I tried to explain that lending money to family is always tricky and that given his track record, it was a huge risk. I also mentioned that I wasn't in a position to just invest in his project, even if it was legitimate. He got really upset and said I was being unsupportive and didn't believe in his dreams. I offered a compromise. I could give him $500 to help him buy some tools or software to get started, but I couldn't do the full loan. He refused that, saying it wasn't enough. After I said no, things got worse. Jake started sending passive-aggressive texts to me and my siblings, essentially saying I was the reason he couldn't succeed. Within a week, I started hearing from other family members. My aunt called me, asking why I wouldn't help my cousin, and implied that I was selfish and didn't care about family. My mom was especially upset. She said that I had missed a chance to help change his life, and that I should reconsider. I tried to explain my side to them, that lending money to Jake was extremely risky and that it wasn't my responsibility to bail him out financially. I also pointed out that if I did give him the money and he didn't pay me back, it could completely wreck my own financial stability. My arguments didn't seem to matter. My uncle even suggested that I could take out a loan myself to help Jake, which I flatly refused. Things escalated further when Jake posted a long rant on Facebook about how he had family members who didn't believe in him and refused to help him achieve his dreams, tagging several people, including me. People in my extended family started sending me judgmental messages. Some were subtle, like asking, "Are you sure you want to do the right thing for yourself, or just protect your money?" Others were more direct, calling me selfish and accusing me of abandoning family in need. Meanwhile, I've also had friends weigh in. Most of them think I was right to refuse, pointing out that Jake's past behavior made lending him such a large sum reckless. Some, however, said I could have at least tried harder to support him in some way, like helping him find investors or advising him on his business plan. I tried offering advice and connecting him with someone who works in tech startups, but he ignored those suggestions. My parents are still upset with me, and family gatherings have been awkward. Jake refuses to talk to me except for snide comments when we happen to be at the same event. I feel trapped because if I bend now, it sets a precedent that he can pressure me into huge financial risks anytime. I also feel frustrated that my family seems to care more about helping Jake chase his dream than respecting my decision to protect my own financial stability. I don't hate my cousin. I want him to succeed, but I just don't see giving him $15,000 as the right way to do that. It's not like I wouldn't help in other ways if he was willing to accept guidance or start smaller. My main concern is that if I give him the money, he might never pay me back, and then I would be the one struggling while everyone else pats themselves on the back for helping family. So, AITA for refusing to give my cousin a substantial loan and standing my ground. Even though my family is now upset with me, I'm honestly feeling really torn because I want to maintain family harmony, but I also feel like I'd be irresponsible and setting myself up for disaster if I gave in. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with me temporarily, even though she thinks I'm being unreasonable. This all started a few months ago. I, 28F, live in a two-bedroom apartment in a medium-sized city. My sister, Emma, 26F, lives about an hour away, and while we're not inseparable, we've always had a decent relationship. She has a boyfriend, Mark, 29M, who she's been dating for about a year. Up until recently, everything with him seemed normal from my perspective, but I've always found Mark a little off. Not in a creepy way, just inconsiderate, impulsive, and somewhat entitled. About a month ago, Emma called me out of the blue, in tears, saying that she and Mark had gotten into a huge fight. Apparently, they had a minor argument that escalated to him saying some really hurtful things. I won't go into all the details, but she said she couldn't stay at her place for a while because she felt unsafe being around him. She asked if she could stay with me for a few days until she figured things out. I, of course, told her she could come over immediately. I thought she just needed a safe space to calm down. She arrived that night, visibly shaken, and stayed for about 3 days. During that time, she vented constantly about Mark, sometimes in an almost obsessive way, which was draining, but I supported her as best I could. On the third night, she told me she wanted to figure out her living situation and asked if it would be okay if Mark stayed with me while they sorted things out. I was taken aback. I explained to her that I wasn't comfortable with Mark staying in my apartment. I know it sounds harsh, but my reasons are pretty straightforward. I live in a small space. I have a cat who doesn't get along with strangers, and honestly, I don't trust Mark around my things or my home. I've known him for a year, but during that time, he's done things that were really inconsiderate when we hung out. He's dropped by unannounced, borrowed things without asking, and once left my apartment a complete mess after helping me clean. I don't feel like I should have to accommodate someone I barely trust, even if it's temporary. Emma's reaction was immediate and intense. She started crying and yelling, saying I was being selfish and not being a good sister. She told me that I had already helped her. Now it's just a few nights for Mark, and that refusing would make her feel abandoned. I tried to stay calm, but the conversation devolved into her repeating over and over how much she needed me right now. I reminded her that I had helped by letting her stay, and that asking me to host her boyfriend was not something I was comfortable with. Over the next few days, the tension between us was palpable. Emma kept texting me, trying to guilt-trip me, saying things like, "I thought you cared about my safety, and if you don't help us, who will?" I tried to explain that helping her and helping Mark were two very different things. I even offered alternatives, like helping her find a cheap Airbnb, suggesting she stay with a friend, or even letting her borrow some money for a short-term place. She refused all of these options, insisting that my apartment was the only viable choice. Things escalated further when Mark called me directly. He was extremely polite on the phone, which I appreciated, but he also insisted that I let him stay. He said he just needed a place for a couple of nights, and that he wouldn't bother me. I tried to explain my reasons again, but he kept pressing, saying that it was the right thing to do for Emma. I finally told him that this was my home, and I wasn't obligated to host anyone I didn't feel comfortable with. Emma then started involving our parents, who were somewhat overbearing. They called me multiple times, trying to convince me to let Mark stay, saying I was being rigid and unsupportive. I stood my ground, but they keep hinting that my refusal is hurting Emma emotionally and that I'm being unreasonable. Now, a few weeks later, Emma and I haven't spoken much. She moved in with a friend temporarily, and while she's okay, she's still upset with me. Mark occasionally texts me, trying to smooth things over, but I haven't responded beyond polite short messages. Our parents are frustrated with me, but I feel strongly that I shouldn't have to compromise my boundaries, especially with someone I barely know and don't trust in my living space. Part of me wonders if I overreacted, but another part feels like my boundaries are being completely ignored. I've been accused of being selfish, uncaring, and not a real sister, which stings because I've always tried to be supportive. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay in my apartment, even temporarily, given my valid concerns about trust, safety, and personal boundaries. AITA for telling my brother he can't stay with me after he moved across the country. So, this is a long one, but I'll try to lay out all the context. I, 29F, have a younger brother, Jake, 26. We've always been close-ish growing up, but as adults, our lives took very different paths. I've been living in my city for about 6 years now, working a stable job in finance, and over the past few years, I've managed to buy a modest condo. I'm very independent, and I value my privacy and routines a lot. Jake, on the other hand, has been kind of directionless. After college, he bounced around jobs, never really sticking with one, and has lived with friends, on couches, and with family members for months at a time. He's charming and funny, but also incredibly unreliable and very entitled. About a month ago, I got a call from him out of the blue. He told me he was moving across the country for work, and he was just looking for a place to crash until I got settled. I was initially sympathetic because moving is hard, but I also have a very small condo, and I've been living alone for years. My place is designed for one person, and honestly, I love my routines. I told him, politely, that I didn't think it would work out for him to stay with me. I explained that my condo is small, my routines are strict, and I value my personal space. He immediately got defensive. He said I was being cold and selfish, and that I was his only family in this city. He said he couldn't afford a place immediately and really needed my help. I stuck to my guns. I told him that I couldn't host him and that he'd need to find a temporary rental or stay in a hostel or extended stay hotel while he got his bearings. He kept texting me daily, trying to guilt me. He said things like, "I can't believe you'd do this to your own brother," and "I've been there for you when you needed me. Why can't you do this for me?" I tried to explain that this wasn't personal, that I'm just not able to share my space in that way. I also reminded him that I've helped him in other ways in the past, like lending him money when he was in a tough spot or giving him rides when he needed them. But he didn't seem to accept that. Things escalated when he showed up at my condo unannounced. I was at work, and my neighbor called me because he was trying to get in. I was furious. When I got home, I told him firmly that he could not stay here, and he needed to leave. He started crying and said that I was ruining his life and that he'd sleep in the car if I didn't help him. I called him a taxi to a nearby motel because I couldn't have him sleeping in my hallway. Since then, he's been very cold toward me. He's been posting passive-aggressive things on social media about family abandoning him, which I know are about me. My parents are calling me to ask why I won't help my brother, and honestly, it's been stressful. I do feel bad that he's in a new city without much support, but I also feel like I have the right to maintain my boundaries. Friends have had mixed reactions. Some say I'm a terrible sister for not helping him in a tough situation. Others say I'm completely justified, that my condo is my home, and I don't owe anyone free housing, even a sibling. I don't want to ruin my relationship with him, but I also don't want to compromise my mental health and independence by having someone stay with me who is very used to living off others and has no sense of boundaries. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with me while he gets settled in his new city? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her new husband? So this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to give all the necessary context. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. We've always been pretty close growing up, though like most siblings, we've had our fair share of fights and disagreements. Our family is small, just my parents, Emily, and me. I've always been the responsible one in the family, the one who gets things done, keeps everyone organized, and generally tries to keep the peace. Emily has always been more free-spirited, which is great most of the time, but it's also caused her to make some questionable decisions. Emily met her fiancé, Mark, 27, about a year ago. At first, I was cautiously optimistic because she seemed happy, but as soon as I met him, something fell off. I tried to put it aside, telling myself I could be wrong, but there were a few red flags. He's very controlling in subtle ways, like he constantly tries to make decisions for Emily, even about trivial stuff, and she tends to defer to him even when I can see she's uncomfortable. He's also incredibly dismissive of anyone's opinions other than his own. The first time I voiced a concern about how he was treating her, he brushed me off, calling me overprotective and dramatic. Despite my reservations, Emily got engaged a few months later. I didn't voice my disapproval publicly because I wanted to support her, but I did have multiple conversations with her privately, try to point out some of the behaviors I was seeing. She would listen for a bit, but then dismiss it, saying I didn't understand their dynamic and that I was being judgmental. At that point, I tried to back off and just be polite, hoping I wouldn't regret it later. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Emily decided she wanted a very specific type of wedding: small, intimate, and perfectly curated. She immediately started excluding a lot of family members and close friends, which I didn't really understand. When I asked her about it, she said it was her day and she wanted to keep it limited. I didn't push, that was a bit hurt. Then, Mark started inserting himself into every decision. He dictated the guest list, insisted on the color scheme, and even told Emily which vendors were acceptable. Emily seemed to comply without much resistance, which was a little worrying, but I tried to stay neutral. The breaking point came when Mark suggested that our parents shouldn't be allowed to walk Emily down the aisle. He said he wanted a fresh start, and that our parents had been too critical of some of Emily's past choices. My parents were devastated when Emily told them this was what Mark wanted, but she said she wanted to respect his wishes. I tried to talk to her about how this was a massive overstep, but she just said, "It's my wedding, not yours." I understood that it's her wedding, but I couldn't reconcile the fact that she was allowing someone she had known for only a year to dictate something so personal and important to our family. As the wedding approached, the tension in the family became unbearable. Our parents were hurt and frustrated, Emily was stressed, and I felt like I was watching a train wreck. The final straw for me was when Emily and Mark told me they wanted me to be just a guest rather than having any role in the ceremony. I've been in her life every day for 28 years, and suddenly I was just someone to attend. I explained to Emily that I couldn't in good conscience participate under those circumstances. I told her that I loved her and wanted to support her, but I could not attend a wedding that was being controlled in ways that felt toxic and erasing to our family. She and Mark were furious. Emily accused me of being selfish, of trying to ruin her special day, and of being disrespectful to her choices. Our parents were torn. They understood my point, but still hoped I would reconsider. I've stayed firm, and the wedding is now in 2 weeks. Emily has since stopped speaking to me except for short, curt messages, and our parents have been trying to mediate. Everyone else in the family has taken sides, which has only made things more complicated. I know I'm going to get a lot of judgment for this, but I really feel like attending would make me complicit in something I fundamentally disagree with. I don't want to be part of a ceremony where I feel like my presence is being used to give legitimacy to choices that hurt my family. I also don't want to create an argument in front of other guests and ruin the day for everyone. On the other hand, I love my sister, and the thought of not being there for her wedding is heartbreaking. I've tried to explain my reasons to her calmly, but she refuses to see my perspective. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her new husband and the way he is controlling the wedding planning, even though it's hurting her feelings. This is weighing on me so much, and I feel torn between standing up for what I believe is right and supporting my sister on one of the most important days of her life. I just don't know if I'm being too harsh or if this is actually a reasonable boundary to set. The situation has also made me rethink our relationship. I'm not sure how to move forward if she refuses to acknowledge my concerns. I'm genuinely scared that choosing not to attend will create a permanent rift between us, but I also feel like attending would betray my own values and my sense of loyalty to my parents and our family history. I'm prepared for backlash from Emily and Mark, but I do want to maintain some form of relationship with her long term. I just don't know if that's even possible if I stick to my stance. Has anyone been in a situation like this? How do you balance personal values, family loyalty, and supporting a sibling in a situation like this without either burning bridges or compromising your principles? I feel like no matter what I do, someone's going to be hurt. I really just want to do what's right, but I'm struggling to figure out what that is. AITA? Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back home after she made a huge mistake. So, this is going to be a long one, and I really need an outside perspective here. because I'm starting to wonder if I am being unreasonable. I, 29M, have a sister, 32F, named Clara, and our relationship has always been complicated. Growing up, she was the golden child, smart, charming, and everyone's favorite. I, on the other hand, was always the quiet, responsible one. Our parents were kind of emotionally manipulative, but that's a whole other story. About 2 months ago, Clara called me in a panic. She had gotten herself into a massive financial mess. Long story short, she had co-signed a lease for her best friend, who basically ran off, leaving her stuck with the rent, utilities, and a bunch of damages. On top of that, she had racked up credit card debt, trying to keep everything afloat. So, she called me and asked if she could move back in with me temporarily while she got her life together. Now, my apartment is not huge. I live alone in a 2-bedroom, so there's technically space, but I enjoy my privacy and structure. I have a routine, I work from home, and I have a dog who is very protective of the apartment. I was hesitant, but because she was family and she sounded genuinely desperate, I reluctantly agreed on very strict conditions. The rules were, she would pay a portion of rent and utilities, not full market rate, but something to show responsibility. She would actively be looking for a new apartment and a job, if necessary. She would contribute to household chores, including cleaning after herself and taking care of the dog. She would stick to a timeline of no more than 3 months. When she moved in, things seemed fine at first. She was polite, cleaned up, and didn't interfere with my routine. But around week 3, the cracks started showing. She would leave dishes in the sink for days, sometimes forgetting to walk the dog, and she began bringing friends over without asking. I tried to communicate calmly, reminding her of our agreement, and she apologized but didn't make any noticeable changes. By week 5, it became unbearable. She stopped paying her portion of the rent consistently, citing unforeseen expenses. She also started borrowing my money for groceries and other random things, promising she'd pay me back, which she never did. On top of that, her friend, who had caused all this in the first place, kept showing up unannounced, and Clara was letting him stay in the apartment for hours. I tried to set boundaries again, and she got extremely defensive, accusing me of not being supportive and treating her like a child. The breaking point came last week. I had an important work project with a deadline, and I asked Clara to make sure she wasn't bringing anyone over because I needed quiet. She not only ignored me, but invited 4 of her friends over for a late-night party while I was working. My dog got stressed, my neighbors complained, and I was furious. When I confronted her, she yelled that I was being unreasonable and controlling. I finally told her that she needed to find another place to live and that I could not continue to support her financially or otherwise. She exploded, saying I was cold, heartless, and selfish, and threatened to tell our parents that I kicked her out. I tried explaining that I did her a favor in the first place and had given her clear boundaries, but she refused to listen. Our parents are involved now because she called them crying. They're upset with me, saying I should help family no matter what, and that I'm overreacting. My friends have mixed opinions, but some are saying I'm right for standing my ground. Here's where I'm stuck. On one hand, I know she's struggling and I understand family obligations, but I also know that enabling her behavior will make it worse. I set clear rules, and she repeatedly ignored them. My apartment is my sanctuary, and I cannot handle someone disrespecting my space, my time, and my dog's well-being. I guess my main concern is, am I truly being unreasonable for asking her to leave after less than 2 months, even though she's going through a tough time? Or am I justified in setting boundaries for my own well-being? I want to help her, but I also can't sacrifice my mental health and personal space to do it. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she repeatedly broke our agreement and caused chaos in my home. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning process. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 26F. Growing up, we were inseparable, and even as adults, we kept in touch almost daily. I've always considered myself the planner in our family, so when Emma got engaged last year, I naturally assumed she'd want my help. I have experience organizing events, and I genuinely enjoy it. I also thought it would be a fun way for us to bond before her big day. When she first told me she was engaged, I congratulated her and immediately asked if she wanted me to help with wedding planning. At that point, she seemed excited and said she wanted me involved, especially with coordinating vendors and coming up with theme ideas. I thought everything was going smoothly until a few weeks later when I noticed she started doing things on her own. I didn't think much of it first, assuming she just wanted to handle some details independently. A couple of months into planning, she officially sent out save-the-date cards. That's when I realized I hadn't been invited to any of the planning meetings, and none of my suggestions from our early conversations were incorporated. I asked her about it casually, and she brushed me off, saying she was just trying to keep it simple and that I had been too overbearing with my initial ideas. I was hurt, but tried to let it go, thinking maybe I had indeed been a bit pushy without realizing it. The situation escalated when she started sharing posts on social media about her wedding planning. Every single update was about her fiancé, her friends, or other family members helping, but I wasn't mentioned once. I reached out again, saying I'd love to help in some way, even if it was just minor tasks. She replied tersely that she had everything under control and didn't need any extra help. I tried to respect her wishes, but it stung because I genuinely wanted to be part of her special day. Fast forward to last month. She officially invited me to the wedding, which is next month. I assumed things would be fine and that we could put our differences aside. But when I opened the invitation, I noticed something odd. My name was written correctly, but the envelope had a note inside that read, "You are welcome to attend as long as you promise not to interfere with the wedding in any way." At first, I thought it was a joke, but when I called her to clarify, she was completely serious. She said she didn't want any tension at the wedding and that she needed space from me. I was shocked and hurt. I told her I couldn't accept an invitation that came with strings attached. I explained that it felt like a punishment for trying to help her and that I didn't want to attend if she was going to treat me like an outsider in my own sister's wedding. She became defensive and accused me of holding grudges and overreacting, and she said I was choosing to miss her wedding for no good reason. Since then, our family has gotten involved. My parents and other siblings have told me I should just go and put aside my feelings for one day, but I feel like that's exactly the problem. I don't want to be somewhere where I'm being deliberately alienated, and I don't think attending would improve our relationship. It might actually make things worse. Some of my friends have told me I'm overreacting and that family weddings are important, but they don't fully understand how excluded and belittled I feel. I have considered sending a gift and a heartfelt letter explaining my decision to skip the wedding, but I haven't done that yet. I also feel a little guilty because I know this will cause more tension in the family and potentially embarrass my parents, who try to mediate. But at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that attending under those conditions would only validate my sister's behavior and make me feel worse. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded me from planning and sent me an invitation that basically said I'm only welcome if I behave exactly how she wants. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with me after she abandoned him. I, 32F, have always been close with my younger sister, Lisa, 28F. We grew up in a small town and moved to the city together after college, though she eventually got her own place. I've always tried to support her, especially when it comes to her relationships. That said, over the past few years, Lisa has had a history of jumping from one guy to the next without much thought, often leaving a mess for someone else to clean up emotionally or practically. About 6 months ago, Lisa started dating this guy, Marcus, 30M. At first, I was happy for her. He seemed nice, and she genuinely seemed happy. However, over the past few months, things have gotten complicated. Marcus lost his job due to company downsizing. Lisa told me multiple times that she was planning on helping him out financially, and I thought that was reasonable. But last week, she announced that she was moving across the country for a new job opportunity. The problem? She left Marcus behind. Lisa called me and said she had to leave urgently for work, and she asked if Marcus could temporarily stay with me until he gets back on his feet. I was caught off guard. I've known Marcus for a few months, but I don't have the kind of relationship with him that would make me comfortable inviting him into my home indefinitely. I work from home, I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment, and I value my privacy. But Lisa insisted, saying he literally had nowhere else to go and that it would only be for a few weeks. She framed it as me helping out family. I reluctantly agreed, thinking it might be okay for a short stay. Marcus moved in last Wednesday. From day one, things started to feel off. He doesn't have many responsibilities. He barely looks for jobs during the day, and I noticed that he left dirty dishes everywhere, never cleaned the bathroom after using it, and constantly watched TV late at night, disrupting my work schedule. I tried talking to him politely, but he shrugged it off and said he was just trying to relax while waiting for his life to get back on track. The next weekend, I came home from grocery shopping to find him had rearranged my living room furniture without asking. He said he thought it would make the space cozier. I was irritated, but tried to stay calm. Then, a few days later, he asked me if he could use my car because his wasn't working. I said no, explaining that I need it for work and errands. He looked genuinely shocked and told me Lisa said I would help him out. I felt cornered but tried to maintain boundaries. Things escalated quickly. He started leaving his laundry in my bedroom because the bedroom is bigger and dryer works better. I caught him going through my cabinets looking for snacks. I asked him multiple times to respect my personal space and belongings, but he either ignored me or minimized my concerns. After a week, I told Lisa that this arrangement wasn't working and that Marcus needed to find somewhere else to stay. I explained that I'm happy to help him look for a job or give him advice, but I cannot have him living in my apartment indefinitely. Lisa called me hysterical, saying I was abandoning Marcus and that I was letting him down when he needed me most. She even threatened to cut me out of her life if I forced him to leave. I decided to hold firm. Marcus became increasingly passive-aggressive, leaving notes around the apartment like, "Hope you're not mad I borrowed your coffee," and making snide comments about how I shouldn't be so uptight about minor things. By the end of the second week, I asked him to leave, offering him a few days to find another solution. He accused me of being heartless and selfish and texted Lisa, who immediately called me, yelling and crying at the same time. I haven't spoken to Lisa since. Marcus found a short-term rental through a friend, but before leaving, he texted me, "You're lucky Lisa isn't around to see how you treat people. I feel guilty because my sister has always relied on me, and I hate to see her upset. On the other hand, I feel that I have boundaries for a reason, and I shouldn't have to put up with someone living in my home who doesn't respect me or my space." My friends are divided. Some say I did the right thing by enforcing boundaries and not letting someone take advantage of me. Others say I should have sacrificed for my sister's happiness. I honestly feel torn because I hate feeling like the villain in a family dispute, but I also don't think I can compromise my living situation and personal comfort just because someone else is temporarily struggling. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay with me indefinitely after she abandoned him. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she asked me to change my entire life for it. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 33F. We grew up in a very traditional household, and our parents were very much into control and appearances. Growing up, Emily was the golden child, smart, beautiful, and charming. I was more introverted and creative, always in the background. We got along fine most of the time, but there's always been a sense that I need to fit into her life rather than live my own. Fast forward to adulthood. Emily got engaged to her boyfriend of 3 years, Tom. Their relationship has been fairly serious, and I'm genuinely happy for her. The problem started when she began planning the wedding. About 6 months ago, she called me out of the blue and asked if I would consider hosting her wedding at my house. I live in a modest 3-bedroom townhouse with my partner, Alex, 31M, and our 2 cats. My townhouse is perfectly fine for our daily life, but it is not big enough to comfortably host a wedding with 80 to 100 guests. I told her this immediately, suggesting a local hall, a friend's large property, or even a small venue that could accommodate everyone. Emily then dropped the bomb. She said hosting at my house wasn't just a preference. It was an essential part of her wedding because our parents were extremely excited about seeing the family home as the central location. She said, "Everyone loves your house, and I know you'd make it perfect. I need you to do this for me. You're the only one who can make this work." I tried reasoning with her. I told her that a wedding of this size would require me to completely clear out my home, rent tables and chairs, deal with catering logistics, and essentially put my life on hold for weeks leading up to the wedding. I also work from home, so hosting a wedding would mean taking extensive unpaid leave and shutting down my workspace. On top of that, I have health issues that make lifting and carrying large items extremely difficult. She responded by saying I was being dramatic and overthinking it. We argued for a while, and finally she said, "If you don't do this, I don't know if we can have a normal sister relationship anymore. I can't believe you'd let me do this alone." At this point, I realized this wasn't about helping her. It was about controlling me and forcing me into a role I wasn't willing to accept. I told her no, calmly but firmly. I said I was happy to help plan, help with logistics at another venue, and even help pay for part of the wedding if necessary. But my home was not on the table. She exploded. Emily accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and cruel. She said I was jealous of her wedding and that I never do anything for the family. Our parents even got involved, calling me to convince me to reconsider. They said things like, "Emily has always been the one to make the family proud. Can't you make a small sacrifice? And you're ruining a special moment for everyone." I tried explaining that my refusal wasn't personal. It was practical, but they kept bringing up family duty and tradition. Alex and I spent weeks discussing what to do. He supported me, saying that this was unreasonable and that no one should have to completely uproot their life for someone else's party, no matter how close they are. He suggested helping Emily in other ways, like organizing a venue, helping with catering, or designing decorations, so I wouldn't be completely uninvolved. I followed that plan, offering to coordinate with the caterers and vendors remotely, but Emily still reacted angrily. She said she felt abandoned and accused me of being petty. The situation escalated when Emily started posting passive-aggressive messages in family group chats. Things like, "I guess some people care more about their furniture than their family," and "It's sad when people won't support their own sister's happiness." My parents also sent me long texts criticizing me for not understanding the importance of family traditions. A few weeks ago, Emily told me she was moving forward with a venue and that I didn't need to host the wedding anymore. I expected some relief, but I actually felt hurt. The tension in our family has been unbearable. I also feel guilty because despite understanding that my health, space, and work obligations make hosting impossible, I can't help but feel like I disappointed her and possibly ruined her dream in some way. We're now about a month away from the wedding, and while I'm not hosting, Emily barely talks to me. She's still cold in texts and avoids spending time with me. My parents have hinted that they're disappointed in me, and I keep getting indirect messages about family loyalty and supporting your sister. On the other hand, my partner and close friends say I did the right thing and that no one should demand such a massive sacrifice. I can see both sides. From Emily's perspective, I'm refusing to help with one of the most important days of her life. From my perspective, her request was unreasonable and would have caused me serious stress and physical strain. I've tried to compromise in ways that don't include me turning my home into a wedding venue, but she refuses to accept that. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house. Character count, 6,541 if you want. I can draft another version with even more drama and twists to make it feel like a top viral Reddit story. This one is realistic, but it could be made more explosive. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to give my sister-in-law my wedding dress, even though she insists she deserves it more. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'm trying to be as detailed as possible because I genuinely don't know if I'm being unreasonable. I, 28F, got married about 3 months ago. My husband, Mark, 30M, and I have been together for almost 8 years, so when we finally decided to tie the knot, it was a huge deal for both of our families. The wedding itself was beautiful, if I do say so myself. I found a vintage wedding dress that I absolutely fell in love with. It was expensive, but I knew I would never forget the feeling I had when I tried it on. The dress has a lot of sentimental value to me because my grandmother actually passed it down to me. It's been in our family for generations, and she personally helped me pick it out before she died. So obviously it means a lot. Fast forward to a week ago, my husband's younger sister Jenna, 25F, called me out of the blue. She asked if she could borrow my wedding dress. I was immediately caught off guard because, well, I had never really thought about lending it out. She told me that she has been engaged for over a year and that she and her fiancé are planning a very small, intimate ceremony. According to her, it's going to be super simple, but I want something special to wear, and your dress is way prettier than anything I could afford or find. She went on to say that she felt like since she's getting married after me, it's kind of a tradition that I should pass my dress along. I told her I really appreciated her admiration for the dress, but I wasn't comfortable lending it out. I explained that it wasn't just a dress to me. It was my grandmother's, and I wanted to keep it as a family heirloom. I also told her I felt weird about someone else wearing a dress that was such a big part of my personal wedding memory. I try to be gentle and diplomatic because I really don't want to cause any drama in the family. Her response was not what I expected. She started crying on the phone and said things like, "I can't believe you'd be so selfish," and "I deserve it more than you because you've already had your day and I haven't, and even Mark wouldn't want you to keep something like that for me." I was shocked. I asked her to calm down and try to explain again that it wasn't about being selfish. It's literally an heirloom that is sentimental value, not a hand-me-down I casually lend out. I talked to Mark about it afterward because I wasn't sure how to handle the situation. He said he agreed with me that it's my dress and my choice, but he also seemed hesitant to fully confront Jenna because she's very dramatic and tends to guilt-trip people. He suggested maybe we could compromise by letting her borrow some of my bridal accessories, like my veil or jewelry. I thought that was a reasonable middle ground and told Jenna that she could have my grandmother's brooch that I wore on my dress, plus my veil, but the dress itself was non-negotiable. Jenna's reaction was extreme. She accused me of being controlling and said I was turning my wedding into a possession. She went on a mini social media tirade, posting about how she couldn't believe her sister-in-law would deny her something so special. She didn't mention me by name, but the context made it obvious who she was talking about. Her fiancé also texted Mark asking why he didn't convince me to give her the dress, which I found incredibly frustrating. Now, family gatherings have become tense. My in-laws are subtly taking her side, saying things like, "We understand why you want to keep it, but maybe you could think about Jenna too." Mark and I are starting to feel like we're walking on eggshells. I've had to avoid most family events because every time Jenna sees me, she makes a passive-aggressive comment about selfishness or family traditions. I really don't want to give up the dress. I feel like it's part of my wedding story and my grandmother's legacy, and giving it to someone else, especially someone who is emotionally manipulating me, feels wrong. I've even considered offering to have a professional copy made or helping her find a similar vintage dress, but she has outright refused to hear any alternative, insisting that it won't be the same and that I owe it to her. I'm exhausted emotionally, and my husband is frustrated because he doesn't want our family drama escalating, but he also knows that I'm not wrong for wanting to protect something that's important to me. So, Reddit, here's the question. AITA for refusing to give my wedding dress to my sister-in-law, even though she insists she deserves it more because she's the next to be married? I'm genuinely torn because I don't want to be seen as cruel or selfish, but at the same time, I feel like boundaries are important and my personal memories shouldn't be invalidated. I keep replaying our conversation and wondering if I could have handled it differently, but the more I think about it, the more it feels like giving in would set a precedent I regret. Honestly, I just want to enjoy my marriage without ongoing guilt trips and social media drama over a dress. Is want to keep my wedding dress to myself really that unreasonable? Character count, 6,435 if you want. I can also write a slightly longer version closer to 7,000 characters with more tension, family interactions, and extra details that make it feel like a top post Reddit story. That would make it feel even more viral ready. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how my fiancé was treated? I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, Dan, 30M, for about 5 years. Dan and I have a really solid relationship, and we get along with each other's families well enough, though my family can be a bit overbearing at times. My sister, Emily, 32F, is getting married in a few months, and I've been helping with the planning, mostly trying to keep things under control since Emily tends to be extremely particular about everything. The problem started about a month ago. Emily and her fiancé, Mark, decided to have a small pre-wedding gathering at my parents' house to announce their wedding to the extended family and go over some last-minute details. This is where the tension really began. Dan is not super social, but he's polite and tries to make conversation. My family, especially my mom, has always been a bit judgmental of him because he doesn't have a high-powered job or because he doesn't drink alcohol. At this gathering, everything seemed fine at first. We were all chatting, and then Emily brought up the seating arrangements for the wedding reception. Emily mentioned that she wanted to seat people who are fun and engaging in the front, and that Dan probably shouldn't sit at the same table as her college friends because he's too quiet and might make them uncomfortable. I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking, but she was dead serious. I tried to argue that Dan is perfectly fine with talking to people if he's given the chance, but Emily waved me off and said she didn't want anyone awkward in her main group of friends. Things escalated when my mom jumped in and said that Dan doesn't have the right energy for a celebratory event and that she just didn't think he fit in with people who have a more exciting lifestyle. At this point, I was starting to get really upset. I tried to defend Dan, pointing out that he's kind, generous, and the most supportive partner I could ask for. My sister rolled her eyes, and my mom said, "Well, it's your choice, but some people just aren't meant to be part of these types of events." Dan was extremely uncomfortable. He quietly excused himself to get some air, and I followed him outside. He was visibly shaken, and I could tell he was hurt by how openly they were dismissing him. I told him that it was fine if he wanted to leave, and he insisted he would stay, but only if I supported him and didn't just let the conversation slide. I went back inside and tried to explain to my sister that her comments were hurtful and that Dan deserves to be treated with respect. Emily's response was basically, "He's your fiancé. You can defend him all you want, but I get to organize my wedding how I want. Don't take it personally." My mom just nodded along, like she agreed, which made me feel completely isolated. I got so angry that I ended up leaving the gathering with Dan. On the way home, I told him I couldn't, in good conscience, be part of a wedding where my fiancé was being subtly, and not so subtly, insulted in front of everyone. Dan agreed with me and said he wouldn't want me to go if I felt that way. The issue blew up when I informed Emily and my parents that I would not be attending the wedding. Emily called me hysterical, saying I was overreacting and ruining her special day. My mom said I was being dramatic and that I needed to put family first. I tried to explain that this wasn't just about me. It was about standing up for my partner and my dignity. The more I spoke to them, the worse it got. Emily accused me of trying to control her wedding and said that if I didn't attend, it would create a rift in the family. My mom said that Dan should just toughen up and that I was being unnecessarily difficult. Even some extended family members called me, saying I should apologize and just let it go for the sake of harmony. I offered to attend if my sister and parents genuinely apologized to Dan and promised to treat him respectfully, but Emily refused. She said, "He's not part of our circle, and that's fine. Don't drag him into this." My mom just said, "Stop being so sensitive. You're ruining the family dynamic." Now, the wedding is in a few weeks, and I've made it clear I won't be going unless things change. Dan supports me, and we've agreed to spend the day quietly together. Some family members are trying to guilt me, sending messages about how my absence will break Emily's heart, but I feel like this is a matter of principle. I'm starting to doubt myself because I know weddings are important to families, and I do want to maintain a good relationship with my sister, but I also feel like letting this slide would mean I'm okay with my fiancé being disrespected in front of everyone. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the way she and my family treated my fiancé? Character count, 6,549 if you want. I can create another variant with slightly more dramatic family dynamics and tension, which tends to do even better in Reddit engagement. That version could push closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he openly disrespected me during a family event? I, 29F, live in a mid-sized city and have my own apartment that I take a lot of pride in. I'm generally known in my family as the planner and organizer, so I often host family events at my place, and people know I like things done a certain way. My sister, Emily, 27F, is getting married next summer, and the engagement has been a huge topic for all of our extended family. Overall, she's a lovely person, but her fiancé, Jake, 32M, has rubbed me the wrong way from the start, mostly because of how he treats other people, including family friends. A few weeks ago, Emily asked me if she and Jake could stay in my apartment for a night because they were coming to town for a wedding and wanted somewhere central. She made it sound casual, like they'd just crash for a night. I hesitated because my apartment is small, I work from home, and I don't like unexpected disruptions, but I didn't want to outright say no. So I told her they could stay for one night, but under my rules, they would respect my schedule, no loud music, and no bringing friends over. The night they arrived was tense from the start. Jake immediately started moving things around at my apartment, opening cabinets, rummaging through my fridge, and complaining that my coffee machine was ancient. I laughed it off, thinking he was just trying to joke around, but it became clear that he wasn't joking when he loudly announced that my bed was too firm and that he couldn't sleep on it. I told him he could take the couch, which is perfectly comfortable, and that my bed was not for guests, which is a rule I always have. He scoffed and muttered something under his breath about how some people just think they own the world. Later that evening, I went to the kitchen to make some tea, and he started criticizing my dishes, saying they were cheap and cluttered. I politely asked him to stop, but he just laughed and said, "You clearly don't care about style if you live like this." At that point, I was getting genuinely annoyed. Emily tried to calm the situation, saying Jake was just joking and that I shouldn't take it personally. I told her that there's joking, and then there's disrespect, and this was clearly the latter. Things escalated further during dinner. I cooked a small meal for us because they hadn't planned to eat out, and Jake made multiple comments about the food being bland and amateur. Then, without asking, he grabbed a bottle of wine from my cabinet and poured himself a glass, saying, "I hope you don't mind if I take the good stuff." I told him it was fine, but he clearly thought it was funny to openly disregard my household rules. Emily was embarrassed, apologizing repeatedly, and tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but he didn't stop. After dinner, I told him directly that he needed to respect my space and my rules if he was staying in my home, and that I wouldn't tolerate insults or rude behavior. He laughed, said he was just being honest, and implied that I was being too sensitive. Emily looked frustrated, but didn't argue. The next morning, I woke up early for work, and when I came out of my room, I saw that he had rearranged my living room furniture again. I asked him to leave the furniture as it was, and he told me I was being controlling and that he wasn't going to be bossed around in someone else's home. At that point, I told Emily that this was not working and I couldn't host him again. I offered to help them find a nearby Airbnb for the rest of their visit. Emily seemed upset but understood, I think, that I had boundaries. The problem is that after they left, Emily called me upset. She said I had embarrassed Jake and that I was being unfair, that families should support each other, and that I was overreacting. She also texted me later saying that Jake has said I'm the problem in this situation and that I'm too uptight. My parents got involved because Emily vented to them, and now there's tension in the family. Some relatives are siding with Emily and Jake, saying I should have bitten my tongue and been a gracious host. I feel like I set reasonable boundaries and that Jake clearly crossed them. I am proud of my home and my personal space, and I don't think anyone has the right to treat me like a hotel or make me feel insulted in my own home. I also feel that Emily is letting Jake's behavior slide because she's afraid of conflict or wants to avoid upsetting her fiancé. AITA for refusing to host Jake again after the way he treated me in my home. Additional context: I don't dislike Emily. I just want my boundaries respected. I've hosted her friends and partners in the past without incident. I've also made exceptions for family members who genuinely treat me with respect, but Jake seems to think he can say whatever he wants and do whatever he wants. I don't want to escalate things, but I also don't want to be forced to host someone who clearly doesn't respect me. I've considered apologizing if my tone came off harsh, but I'm hesitant because it feels like that would signal that his behavior was acceptable, which it wasn't. I've been trying to keep the peace by offering alternative accommodations, but Emily seems hurt regardless. So AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emma, 32F, but we've managed to stay close over the years. Our bond has had its ups and downs, mostly due to our different personalities and approaches to life. I've always been the careful, considerate sister, while Emma is more spontaneous and sometimes reckless. Most of the time, I'm okay with that because we're family, and family is messy by nature. However, things have recently escalated to a point where I'm questioning whether I should even attend her wedding. The wedding itself is scheduled for 6 months from now, and Emma has been engaged to her fiancé, Luke, 33M, for almost a year. From the beginning, I didn't get a great vibe from him. He's charming on the surface, but there were subtle things that made me uncomfortable. He has a tendency to belittle others when he thinks they're less competent or too sensitive, and he's extremely controlling about small decisions. Emma seems to overlook these behaviors, but I notice them, and I can't ignore how they make me feel. It all came to a head a few weeks ago. Emma invited me and my partner, Daniel, 30M, over to her apartment for a casual dinner. Luke was there, and it started out fine. Then he began making comments about my career, which he clearly saw as less impressive than his own. He said things like, "Oh, you still work in marketing? I thought you'd be in something more ambitious by now, and marketing is easy. I don't know why people make such a big deal about it." At first, I tried to brush it off, but the comments kept coming, and they were increasingly condescending. The breaking point happened after dinner. Emma and Luke suggested we all play a board game, which is normally something I'd enjoy. Luke immediately started taking over, berating Daniel for small mistakes and loudly correcting everyone. At one point, he said to me, "You really don't understand this game, do you? Maybe I should explain it slowly so you can keep up." I froze. I was furious, but tried to stay calm because I didn't want to ruin the evening. Later that night, Daniel and I were talking about it privately, and he said he'd noticed Luke's behavior too. He told me he felt uncomfortable around Luke because he constantly tried to assert dominance over everyone in the room, and it wasn't subtle. That's when I realized this wasn't just me being sensitive. It was genuinely toxic behavior. After that, I tried to talk to Emma about my concerns, but it didn't go well. I said, "I feel like Luke can be really controlling and dismissive, and it makes me uncomfortable to be around him sometimes." Emma's response was immediate defensiveness. "You're just exaggerating. He's great. You don't know him like I do. Why are you trying to ruin this for me?" I told her that I wasn't trying to ruin anything, just expressing how I felt. She got visibly upset and said, "If you can't support me, maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding." That stung because I had never tried to sabotage her happiness. Since then, we've had a few more conversations, and they all ended similarly. Her insisting that I'm the one overreacting and me feeling like my concerns are invalidated. I try to distance myself a bit and be polite when we interact, but it's hard because I feel like Emma is ignoring a side of Luke that is very real and potentially harmful, not just to me, but to her. Now, the wedding invitations have been sent. I'm sitting here debating whether I should go. On one hand, I love my sister and I want to celebrate her. On the other hand, I genuinely do not feel safe or comfortable around Luke. I don't want to spend what should be one of the happiest days of her life feeling stressed, anxious, and forced to smile through condescension and subtle insults. I've considered attending just for a few hours, but even that feels unbearable because Luke will be there for the entire event. I told Emma that I was thinking of not attending, and she completely flipped. She accused me of trying to control her wedding and said that if I really cared about her, I'd put aside my feelings and come. She even suggested that my refusal was selfish and disrespectful to her and her fiancé. Other family members have weighed in too, saying that I should just grin and bear it for the sake of family harmony. I feel stuck. I don't want to be labeled the problematic sister who ruins family events, but I also don't want to compromise my own well-being and sense of boundaries just to appease someone I'm uncomfortable around. I've thought about writing a letter explaining my reasons, but I know it may not matter. Emma has already decided that my concerns are invalid. I guess what I'm asking is this. Am I the asshole for considering skipping my sister's wedding because I don't feel safe around her fiancé? I know it's a big deal for her, but I also know that I would not be able to enjoy the day at all. And I might end up creating a scene because of how upset and frustrated I'd feel. I'm torn between family loyalty and personal boundaries, and I don't know if there's a right choice here. I want to support my sister, but I also want to protect myself from someone whose behavior I find toxic and oppressive. I just don't know if standing firm on this is reasonable or if I'm overreacting and being selfish. So AITA, thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.